You won't hear my name here, not because I'm hiding, but because this space isn't about who I am. It's about you, your breath, your thoughts, the moment you wish you could just sit still and feel safe. Finding Stillness is a quiet space for anyone who needs it, a space to pause, to reflect, or just to listen. No pressure to speak, no need to be anything other than what you are right now. Take a seat, you're safe here. Hey everyone, and whoever's out there that's listening. Oh, did it take me a while to do this? But I think I'm trying to live life on the edge a lot more and just do things that I enjoy and things that make me happy. And I've been thinking a lot about things lately, and it's in particular this one feeling. And I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that feels that way, but it definitely feels like that sometimes. And I want to talk about those moments where you're going through something challenging and it kind of feels like you're the only one in the world who feels that way, whether it's loneliness or self doubt or questioning your worth and feeling like you're not good enough, or most importantly, feeling like you're out of place in a way. And these feelings are definitely isolating, and sometimes you feel suffocated in those moments. It's definitely strange because, in a way, we all know logically that everyone goes through tough times and tough moments, but I think sometimes and somehow when we're in that moment, it kind of feels like nobody else could possibly understand your feelings or however you feel in that moment, and it can get suffocating, it really can. And it's hard to talk about, if I'm honest with you, and I think a lot of you may feel that way as well. But it's maybe because it's one of those things where we all assume that everyone else somehow has figured it out, and or like maybe we just don't know how to put it into words. And I think for me, definitely, it's not knowing how to put things into words. And I think this podcast gives me, in a way, the ability to just kind of talk about things as like and just create a space to open up, kind of like I'm talking to myself, but maybe in hearing these things and hearing the ways to deal with them, or even sometimes just listening and also just relating, because sometimes fixing it is not always a solution. And I think sometimes you just need to hear that you're not the only one. And if you, maybe in hearing this, if you feel the same way, you kind of know that you're not the only one going through it. So let me take you back to kind of a moment where I kind of felt like this way of feeling like I'm the only one going through something. A few weeks ago, I was like at a gathering, and it was a small event filled with those who were the closest to me. But it kind of felt like as soon as I walked in, I kind of felt that sense of feeling out of place and not knowing what to do with myself. And in that moment, it was like as soon as I took that step into the room, like I just was automatically in my head for the rest of the evening. And it kind of felt like everyone seems to know each other better, and laughing and talking, and I just felt like I was just there, and it was suffocating. And it kind of just, I'm not usually a shy person, and I just remember feeling so anxious, and I just felt like I was in a way invisible, and I tried to make myself more invisible and not be out there. And I did try to join into conversations, but I kind of just spent that whole time in my head feeling like I didn't belong and like I was some sort of outsider. And it kind of felt like I was faking it, and I kept telling myself, oh my god, you're such an imposter. Like, just going through that motion of just like nodding your head and smiling, and when all I wanted to do, in a way, was like be anywhere else and just kind of disappear without anyone noticing. And sometimes I feel like nobody would, in a way. And I remember going home that night and feeling so down about it, and I was just like angry with myself, but also I questioned why it was so hard for me to fit in, and why I felt this weird disconnect from everyone around me and those that are closest to me. And it's not necessarily, sometimes it can be friends, but it can also be family members. And I started thinking, like, am I just not good enough in making true connections with everyone? And am I boring? Or kind of what's wrong with me and what makes me feel like this? And I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed is I think I'm just noticing that sometimes I feel like I'm just the character in everybody's life that they go to whenever they need that sense of relief or, in a way, trauma dumping. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, am I just not like fun? Do people not like being around me? And I just went through a spiral of emotions. And the thing is, in that moment, it kind of felt like I was literally the only person who could possibly feel so out of place. And I'll like, it was just so difficult to even share like those things. And it honestly, like, just sometimes it feels difficult to open up about feelings. There's definitely a part of me that feels like if I talk about this, I'll be either, I just feel embarrassed, and I sometimes shut it down because I tell myself, this is not, like, you're either being over dramatic or this isn't something you should ever talk about. And I just kind of brush my emotions and feelings off automatically. And I think we all know that we live in a world where everyone's so put together. And I mean, like, specifically on social media as well, even though we all know social media is a big lie. And I think people tend to post this, like, perfect snapshot of their lives. And even in conversations, it kind of seems like everyone's got shit under control in a way. And I think I've just finished university, and I wouldn't even say just finished. I think it's been a few months now since I graduated my undergraduate, and spending 4 years in university to now feel like, oh my god, I just don't know what I'm doing. And I think we all know that we all maybe have someone in our lives, or a few people in our lives, either are getting married or have their life put together, or they're working in the best career that they wanted, or things just worked out for them. And I think it's definitely lonely feeling like I just finished university and I just don't know what to do with my life. And I spent the last 15 years of my life, or even 14 years of my life, knowing what I was going to do, and the path was already written out for me. And it was the waking up and having your breakfast, and your parents dressing you, and then giving you the breakfast from such a young age, then taking you to school, to then repeating that cycle for another decade and a bit, and then finishing your undergraduate. Is like, oh, okay, like, what am I now doing with my life, and what's next? And then everyone somehow wants to ask you, what are you doing right now, and what's next, and have you found a job, or like, why don't you go into your masters, and or what are you waiting for? And it's so suffocating, and it kind of just definitely feels lonely. And I think it boosts those, like, that sense of insecurity of feeling like, oh my god, like, it kind of feels like I'm naked and my insecurities are showing, and everybody's just trying to be like, but do this and but do that, but don't wait too long, and don't do this, and maybe if you do this things won't work out that way. And it's so suffocating, and it kind of feels like it goes against what we're supposed to present to the world. And it kind of feels like nobody's allowed to express as much emotion as they can, because today everybody, I feel like, kind of sees you as like, oh my god, don't be too emotional, she's just sensitive, or they can't handle this and they're not able to do that. And it kind of creates that self-doubt in you to become even worse, and also to make you feel like, oh, they're also thinking that, so you're thinking that, so it must be true. And I definitely think it's that fear of judgment, and I think sometimes I'm definitely afraid of people seeing me in a different way if I admit certain things. And I, as everyone else, we've all been through some type of shit through our lives, whether it's like from at a younger age and navigating life solely on your own in a way, and dealing with things on your own and having to mature a lot quicker, and then getting to your mid 20s feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. And I feel like I haven't lived life in the last 20 maybe, yeah, in the last 20 years, and feeling like your childhood was your childhood. But I think after, when you get to your teens, you kind of get to a point where you're like, you're just going with the flow. And then when you hit your mid 20s and you're 25, you think, I don't know what to do. And I just feel like I built this perception of my life that was based solely on the perception, as well as the actions and the communication of others, the most important people in my life, portrayed to me, and outrightly said, this is what you're supposed to be, and you're this and you're that. And it kind of forced me at such a young age to create a perception of something that I wasn't, which is now I feel like I'm in my mid 20s unaware of what I want to do, and not sure of who I am. And I really am afraid sometimes to admit this to those around me. And I do feel that, like, that sense of judgment, because everyone's so quick to just sweep it under the rug, and it's just nobody really wants to talk about it. And I feel like it's that sense of, oh my god, feeling lonely, and then thinking, oh my god, are people going to think that I'm a bit too needy? Especially when I'm never a person to open up about my feelings, and I've never been that person, but I've been that person for everyone else to kind of trauma dump. And I love a lot of people in my life, and I truly love the fact that they do feel that they can come to me to express their emotions. But I feel like sometimes if I did that, maybe I would be seen as being a bit too sensitive, or remembering the past and just not living in the future, or sorry, living in the present, and just always living in the past rather than thinking about the now. And I definitely say I doubt myself, and sometimes I think that, will others see me as not being capable? And there are all these different types of thoughts that run through my mind, and kind of make me feel like I think it increases the want to keep these feelings to myself and not express them. And because I think I've been shown my entire life that sense of not expressing your sensitivities and your emotions and your feelings, or the hurt that someone else has put on you, and or someone's disappointed you, and you weren't ever able to vocalize that. So I think that's why growing up I was so used to just, and very good at it, if I have to say that, which isn't healthy, in bottling up all my emotions, and having every so often that Pandora's box burst open because of the overload of information, or the overload of emotions that I've kind of just like chucked in the back of my head. And then I'd have moments where I'd like a day or two go quiet, and I just need to just be on my own to just rejuvenate and tell myself it's going to be okay, or just feel those emotions. And sometimes it would take a little bit longer, but as soon as I presented myself back out and I went to see people, it was like, okay, now I can handle myself, I can now handle you as well. And I think over time I kind of started feeling like I definitely tried a few things to manage my feelings and emotions, and like, as much as they're not a magic fix, and they do help me feel more grounded and connected. And I know this is one that everyone suggests, and like a lot of people say that it's a benefit to them, is journaling. But with me, I write in my journal only when I feel like my emotions are getting overwhelming, and I realized, oh my god, I had such a shitty day today, and now I just like want to express that, but I'm not able to vocalize that, so I will write it down. And once I've written all the thoughts in my head down, and I see it, and I'm like, okay, like I can validate my own emotions in that moment. But I do struggle with journaling every day, because I think for me journaling just re-triggers me in certain moments. So when I'm not feeling like, a lot I don't journal, because if I just journal and I express all the things in my head, I do tend to lead to writing things about the past, and then I'm triggered in that moment and I get upset. So I tend to just journal when I feel like, oh my god, everything's a bit overwhelming and I don't know what to do, and I just put everything onto the page, and seeing it definitely like written out and kind of makes me realize that the thoughts aren't so overwhelming, but at the same time I want to validate the fact that they are in my head and I feel that way. And sometimes like I do read it back to myself and in like on another day, and I'll kind of maybe like see the pattern, like maybe I tend to feel this way when I'm stressed, or I'm pushing myself a bit too hard, or I'm around certain people and I know that, okay, what can we do about that? And I think one of the things that I'm definitely learning to do a lot more now is kind of, even though it's really hard for me, is reaching out to someone. And I think, as I said, I think everybody's gone through stuff, and I feel like growing up I developed this thing where I felt like I just didn't want to be a burden upon people, so I didn't tend to express my emotions to those around me, and I kind of kept that all to myself. But as I'm growing up, I'm realizing how important that is, and whether it's like going through a really tough time and you kind of decide to like tell a close friends, or even going to therapy, or whatever it is that works for you, whether it's a close family member who's similar to your age, or an older family member, or even your parents if you feel like you have that type of relationship. And I think sometimes I get so nervous that they would assume that I'm either overreacting, um, or they would think, which has happened in the past, or they wouldn't validate my feelings. Or sometimes, as much as I love dearly those in my life, sometimes some have this habit of kind of like using their situation as a way to kind of be like, oh my god, but I've gone through that as well, and like, oh, I can relate to that because this happened to me. But I think sometimes what happens is, it's not that I want to dismiss that, it's that I just want you to hear me. Like, I don't want to comparing at the moment. I don't want you to be like, let me fix this or let me fix that. And sometimes I think having someone in your life that's just able to hear you out, and even sometimes in that moment tell you that they felt the same way in the past, but not going into too much detail, and having those deep conversations can definitely be an eye-opener. And it's kind of sometimes funny how just knowing that someone else has been through that can change everything. Even though we see on the internet videos of people who are explaining that they went through this and they went through that, but I think when you're able to have a genuine deep conversation with someone that you care about, as well as them caring about you that way, it changes a lot. And I think those little reminders I try to tell myself, like sometimes I try to say phrases like, it's okay to feel that way, or these feelings don't define me, and I try to repeat them until they sink in. Don't get me wrong, sometimes they don't help, but I definitely try to use them as much as I can. And I think one of the things lately, now that I'm a post-grad and I'm like at this point in my life where I'm not sure what I want to do with my life, and I know what I want to pursue, but I'm finding it difficult to find that, or I'm waiting for it to find me. And I tend to tell myself a lot is, you don't have to have it all figured out. And it definitely sounds so simple, but sometimes that's exactly what I need to hear, and I just need to keep repeating that to myself. And sometimes it's like difficult to kind of feel like, okay, I got my shit together, and sometimes it's just easier to be like, I don't have to have it all figured out, and just because that person's have it. And I think sometimes you do get in your head a bit too much, where that enviness does kick in, and sometimes you have to realise, no, that's not something I should ever think. That I'm happy for that person, and I'm glad to see that they're thriving, and just right now it's not my time, and it will come to me in the future. And at this moment I don't have to have it all figured out, just because we see, as soon as we wake up and we're scrolling through the internet, or we're reading something, that it's supposedly the world has got it all figured out. And I would say supposedly, because not everyone has it figured out, but it's easier to, and I think over time I had to just come to the realisation of a lot of things. And like, winter of 2021 to the winter of 2023 were the most difficult 2 years of my life. I felt like I just had to deal with my emotions. It was like I had no choice at all. Can't even get my words out, and they were really difficult. And last year, my final year of university, from 2023 autumn to the summer of 24 last year, that was another difficult stage of my life, but it was like a learning difficult stage, and I was kind of learning myself in different ways, and it gave me the ability to kind of deal with my emotions. Like, it was like I had no choice but to deal with them and bring them to the surface, things that from the past to things in that present moment. It's crazy because I was in the middle of writing my dissertation, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know what to do, and I'm finding this difficult, and I'm like writing my dissertation, and that's taking up all my time because I'm finishing my undergraduate. And I just had to realize that the moments in the past and moments of feeling like I'm the only one actually going through certain things are definitely teaching me something so important, and that's what last year felt like to me. And it kind of reminded me that vulnerability isn't a weakness, and it's definitely a strength. And growing up, it's something that I filled my head with, which is why I never really was open. And only now, really, I would say I'm becoming a lot more vulnerable with my feelings, and I feel safe more than anything. I think I protected myself and my feelings for a very long time, that I developed this habit of kind of telling my child self and my late teens and pre-teens that vulnerability was a weakness and it wasn't a strength. But I just, in the last 2 years, especially in the last year, have kind of been reminding myself that vulnerability isn't a weakness and it's definitely a strength. And being able to admit when I'm struggling, even if it's just to myself. And I think sometimes I do have that imposter syndrome with myself, and I kind of tell myself that, like, I force myself to shut my own feelings out, and I struggle with like admitting things even to myself, and I'll push it out to the point where I'll burn out. And life isn't easy. It's definitely not easy, but if I'm not trying to make my own life better for myself, it's just going to get harder. And it's definitely helped me learn more about who I am and what I need to feel supported and what I need to feel protected, and how I can develop trusting people a lot better with my emotions. And these moments definitely taught me that no one has it all figured out. And I mean, I look at people and I admire people who seem so confident, and I've learned that they themselves have their own struggles and doubts too. And as much as things look picture perfect, it's not always like that. And I've learned that it's okay to be a work in progress. And that's completely normal to have, and have these moments of doubt. And even if they're uncomfortable, I have to sit with that uncomfortable feeling and learn from that uncomfortable feeling in order for me to arise from that moment. And I think one of the things I mentioned recently to someone who's close to me was, I'm not a problem. There is no problem about me, and I don't need to be fixed. And I just need to just learn in that moment, and I'm progressing. And I've been seeing this audio that everybody's been using on Instagram, and I always remember the beginning and never the whole thing, but it says enjoy the moment in becoming. And I always remember Daniel Ricciardo's video when he was like, just enjoy the butterflies, and just like enjoy the now rather than always feeling like you, and there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, and just enjoy the moment that you're in, and just feel like, yes, I want to become that, but I know it takes time to become that. And I definitely am learning that. And I think feelings are a strength. They are the best thing that I think can ever happen to you, is having emotions and being able to deal with your emotions. And understanding my own feelings has definitely made me a lot more empathetic, and I've always had that sense of empathy towards everyone. I always say to myself, oh my god, I cry to myself about strangers on the internet all the time, and I'm crying for someone I don't even know. But now that I'm kind of like in that social setting, I'm more likely to notice if someone else is like more quiet and out of place when I've addressed my feelings. But before, I was on this like empathy burnout, and I got to the point where, especially in the last 3 years, where I'm guilty to say I in a way dismissed people's feelings, or felt so wound up about like the fact that I now have to deal with this or whatever it is. But I truly love those in my life, and I think I got to this point where I would try and reach out a lot more than I did before, and I know how it feels to be in that position. And I think these experiences are definitely shaping me into a more compassionate person, and I'm grateful for that. So to end this, I think if you ever feel like this too, just know that you're not alone. And I think sometimes it's difficult. Like I always say, it's difficult to hear when somebody's telling you you're not the only one, but sometimes you need to just be heard. And I hope you are being heard. I truly am. And these feelings, they definitely come and go for everyone, even in those moments where we just don't want to talk about them. And maybe next time you're feeling disconnected or unsure, remember that it's okay to feel this way. And it doesn't mean that you're any less capable, or you're not strong enough, or you're losing that spark, or you're no longer being that empathetic person you once was. I really hope that by sharing this, you feel a little less alone in whatever you're going through, and to always know that your feelings are valid, and to never feel like you think that your feelings are just minor, or there's something little. No matter what it is that you're going through, your feelings are valid. And if I have to tell you that, then I will keep on reminding you. And if you ever need to talk about it, reach out to someone you trust, like truly trust, and you feel protecting around. Sometimes kind of just saying it out loud to yourself makes a massive difference. I will admit, I talk to myself all the time, and I have those moments where I'm having a full-blown conversation, and I'm done with my conversation. I just sit there and think, am I okay? Like, should I be concerned that I've just outrightly had a full-on conversation with myself? And sometimes you are your best person to understand your feelings, because sometimes it is difficult, because there are certain things that you've gone through that someone you may be around may have not gone through, so they may not necessarily know how to be there for you. Or even if you know someone who's going through something that you don't necessarily know how to deal with, just being there for them and hearing them makes a massive difference. And I hope you have that as well. And you're always welcome, most importantly, to come back here, where we can kind of process different things together, and be able to understand things in a way that you may feel like you can't understand, or you may feel like the situation isn't getting any better. And I hope we can process these things together. So thank you for listening, and remember, you're never as alone as you might feel in any moment of your life. So yeah, have a safe day. I hope you have a good day, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. And yeah, I hope you find your stillness.